The humidity in São Paulo clung to my skin like a second layer, thick and oppressive even at 10 o'clock at night. I wiped the back of my hand across my forehead as I locked the door to my mother's apartment, the sound of her labored breathing still echoing in my ears. The medication was running out again. 3 more days, maybe 4 if I stretched it, and then I'd be back to watching her suffer while I scrambled to find money that didn't exist. My phone buzzed in my pocket as I descended the narrow staircase, the concrete walls covered in graffiti that changed every week. I didn't recognize the number, but something in my gut twisted as I answered. Deanna Prederotti? The voice was male, American, with an accent that immediately reminded me of my father. The father I hadn't seen in 15 years, since he'd dumped my mother and me in Brazil like unwanted luggage and returned to his precious familia in New York. Who's asking? I switched to English, though my Portuguese accent colored every word. I'd learned English from American movies and tourists, not from the family that had abandoned me. My name is Carlo Benedetti. I'm calling on behalf of the Prederotti family. A pause. Your sister is dead. The world tilted slightly. Sister. I had a half-sister I'd never met, born from my father's first marriage to some Mafia princess. Isabella. I'd seen her face once in a magazine article about New York's elite, all blonde perfection and designer clothes. Everything I wasn't. I'm sorry for your loss, I said carefully, not feeling sorry at all. What did I owe to a family that had pretended I didn't exist? There's more. Carlo's voice took on a harder edge. She was engaged to be married. The wedding was in 2 weeks. Her death has created complications for certain business arrangements. Your father has requested your immediate return to New York. I actually laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that made an old woman passing on the street glance at me nervously. My father? The man who sent exactly 0 birthday cards in 15 years wants me to drop everything and fly to New York? Tell him to go fuck himself. Miss Prederotti. Carlo's voice dropped to something colder, more dangerous. Your mother's medical care is expensive. The experimental treatment she needs, the one her insurance won't cover. That costs approximately 50,000 American dollars per month. My blood turned to ice. How do you know about that? We know everything about you, Deanna. We know about the 3 jobs you worked to keep her alive. We know about the loan sharks you've been avoiding in Jardins. We know you're 2 months behind on rent, and that your landlord is planning to evict you next week. He paused, letting that sink in. Come to New York, meet with your father. And all of that goes away. Your mother gets the treatment she needs, your debts disappear, and you'll want for nothing. And if I refuse, then your mother dies, slowly and painfully, while you watch. The choice is yours. The line went dead. I stood there on that dirty São Paulo street, surrounded by the sounds of traffic and distant samba music, and felt the trap close around me. They'd found my weakness, the one thing I'd do anything to protect. My mother, the woman who'd sacrificed everything for me, who'd been cast aside by the Prederotti family like trash. 2 days later, I was on a plane to New York, wearing the nicest clothes I owned, a simple black dress from a second-hand shop that probably cost less than the price of my ticket. I'd said goodbye to my mother, promising her I'd be back soon, knowing it was probably a lie. Whatever the Prederottis wanted from me, it wasn't going to be a quick visit. The first-class seat felt like an insult. I was surrounded by wealthy travelers who belonged in this world of luxury, while I sat rigid and uncomfortable, my hands clenched in my lap. I'd never been on a plane before, never left Brazil, and now I was flying toward a family that had spent my entire life pretending I didn't exist. When I landed at JFK, there was a man waiting with a sign bearing my name. He was built like a tank, with cold eyes that assessed me in one sweeping glance and found me wanting. "Welcome to the family," his expression seemed to say. "You're already a disappointment." "I'm Marco," he said, taking my single battered suitcase. "I work for Mr. Ungaretti." "Who?" The name meant nothing to me. Something that might have been amusement flickered across Marco's face. You'll meet him soon enough. Come. The car was a black Mercedes that probably cost more than every apartment in my building combined. Marco drove in silence through streets I'd only seen in movies, the late September air crisp and cool compared to São Paulo's eternal summer. We headed north, out of the city, until we reached a sprawling estate that looked like something from a Godfather film. Where's my father? I asked as Marco opened my door. Inside, with the others. They're waiting for you. Others. Plural. My stomach churned as I followed Marco through massive wooden doors into a foyer that could have fit my entire apartment. Everything screamed old money, old power, old blood. This was the world my father had chosen over us, over me. Voices drifted from a room down the hall, speaking rapid Italian that I couldn't quite follow. My mother had taught me some, but not enough for this. Marco pushed open a door, and 6 pairs of eyes turned to stare at me. My father stood by a window, older than I remembered but still recognizable. Tall, graying at the temples, with the same dark eyes I saw in the mirror every morning. Next to him stood an older woman dripping in jewelry who must be his wife, the one who'd replaced my mother. 3 other men I didn't recognize, all in expensive suits, all watching me like I was a specimen under glass. And in the corner, leaning against a bookshelf with his arms crossed and an expression of barely contained disdain, was the most intimidating man I'd ever seen. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair styled back from a face that could have been carved from marble. Sharp jaw, straight nose, and eyes so dark they looked almost black. He wore his suit like armor, and even standing still, he radiated a kind of controlled violence that made every instinct I had scream danger. Deanna, my father's voice was careful, formal. Thank you for coming. I didn't have much choice, did I? I kept my Portuguese accent strong, refusing to soften it for his comfort. You threatened my mother. We offered you an opportunity. One of the other men interjected. There's a difference. Is there? I looked at my father. Why am I here, really? The intimidating man in the corner made a sound, something between a scoff and a laugh. When he spoke, his voice was deep and dark, laced with sarcasm. She doesn't know? Cristo, you didn't even tell her? Tell me what? I looked between them, feeling the trap tighten even though I couldn't see its shape yet. My father cleared his throat. Isabella's death has created certain complications. She was engaged to be married. That marriage was important for maintaining peace between families, for honoring old agreements. Okay. I still didn't understand why that involved me. The agreement must be honored, my father continued. A Pretorati daughter must marry as promised. Since Isabella is gone? No. The word escaped before I could stop it, before my brain had fully processed what he was saying. No, absolutely not. You cannot be serious. Deadly serious, the dangerous man said, pushing off from the bookshelf. He moved with a predator's grace, closing the distance between us until he stood close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Hello, Deanna. I'm Dominic Ungaretti. I was supposed to marry your sister. Now I'm going to marry you instead. His voice was flat, emotionless, like he was discussing a business transaction, which, I realized with growing horror, is exactly what this was. Over my dead body, I said, proud that my voice didn't shake. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. That can be arranged, or you can marry me and your mother lives. Your choice. Some choice. I looked at my father. This is why you brought me here? To sell me off like cattle? To fulfill your family duty, he replied. Isabella would have done the same. Isabella was raised for this. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. I wasn't. I don't know anything about your world, about the Mafia, about being some mob wife. I don't even know you. You'll learn. Dominic said simply. The wedding is in 3 days. That gives you 72 hours to make your peace with your new reality. 3 days. I'd been in New York for less than an hour, and my entire life was being ripped away from me. I looked around the room at these men in their expensive suits, at my father who'd abandoned me, at the stepmother who looked at me with barely concealed contempt, at Dominic Ungaretti, with his cold eyes and colder voice. "And if I run?" I asked quietly. "We'll find you," Dominic replied. "I always find what belongs to me. And make no mistake, Deanna, whether you like it or not, you belong to me now. You became mine the moment your sister died." "I don't belong to anyone," I shot back, fury replacing fear. "I'm not property." "In this world?" He leaned closer, his voice dropping to something almost intimate despite the threat in his words. "Everyone is property. The only question is who owns you. Would you rather it be me, with the resources to keep your mother alive? Or would you prefer the loan sharks in Sao Paulo? I hear they're not nearly as patient as I am." The reminder of my mother, suffering in her bed thousands of miles away, killed the rebellion burning in my chest. He knew it too. I could see the satisfaction in his eyes as I deflated, as the fight drained out of me. 3 days, I whispered. 3 days, he confirmed. Then, surprisingly, he reached out and caught my chin, tilting my face up to his. His touch was gentle but firm, possessive. "Don't look so tragic, Piccola. Some women would kill for the life I'm offering you." "I'm not some women." "No," he agreed, something flickering in those dark eyes that I couldn't quite read. "You're not, which is going to make this very interesting." He released me and stepped back, the brief moment of physical contact leaving my skin tingling in a way that both confused and angered me. I didn't want to be affected by this man. I didn't want to notice how well his suit fit, or how his presence seemed to fill the room. I definitely didn't want to acknowledge the heat that had flared in my stomach when he'd touched me. "Marco will show you to your room," Dominic said, already turning away, dismissing me. "Someone will bring dinner. Get some rest. You look exhausted." "Gee, thanks," I muttered in Portuguese. "You really know how to charm a girl." He paused at the door and glanced back, a slight smile on his lips. "I speak Portuguese, by the way, fluently, so feel free to insult me to my face next time." Then he was gone, leaving me standing in a room full of strangers who'd just decided my entire future without asking what I wanted. Welcome to the family, indeed. My room turned out to be larger than my entire apartment in Sao Paulo. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked manicured gardens that probably required a full-time staff to maintain. The bed was massive, covered in linens that felt like clouds, and there was an attached bathroom with a tub deep enough to swim in. Everything was cream and gold, elegant and expensive, and utterly foreign. I sat on the edge of the bed, still in my second-hand dress, and tried not to cry. Crying was weakness, and I'd learned long ago that showing weakness only invited more pain. But Cristo, I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw things. To break this perfect room with its perfect furniture that represented everything wrong with this situation. A knock interrupted my spiral. I opened the door to find a woman about my age, petite and blonde with kind eyes that seemed out of place in this house of wolves. "Hi," she said in English. "I'm Sophia. I work for Mr. Ungaretti. I brought you some clothes." She gestured to the garment bags draped over her arm. "He said you traveled light." "He said that?" I stepped aside to let her enter. "Or he ordered you to bring clothes because he's already trying to change me." Sophia's lips twitched. "Both, probably. He's very thorough. But for what it's worth, the clothes are your size, your style. He had me research you." "Research me?" Ice slid down my spine. "What does that mean?" She hung the garment bags in the massive closet, unzipping them to reveal jeans, dresses, casual wear. Nothing too fancy or revealing. Actually, they looked exactly like things I would have chosen for myself if I'd had money. Mr. Ungaretti doesn't do anything halfway, Sophia said carefully. When he learned you were coming, he had his people learn everything about you. Your clothing size, your favorite colors, what kind of music you like, where you eat, who your friends are. She paused. The loan sharks you owe money to? They received full payment this morning, with a message that you're under Ungaretti protection now, and any further contact will be dealt with severely. My legs felt weak. He paid off my debts? Why? Because you're his now. He takes care of what's his. Sophia's expression was hard to read. That's both a promise and a warning. I don't want to be his anything. I know. Her voice softened. But if you have to belong to someone in this world, Dominic Ungaretti isn't the worst choice. He's brutal, yes. Controlling, absolutely. But he's also fiercely loyal to the people he claims. He'll protect you with everything he has. Even if I don't want his protection. Sophia didn't answer, which was answer enough. After she left, I showered in that ridiculous bathroom, trying to wash away the feeling of being watched, of being owned. The hot water felt like luxury, and I hated that even this small comfort came from him, from this man who'd decided I was his property. I'd just pulled on jeans and a simple black shirt when another knock came. This time it was Marco with a tray of food that smelled incredible and made my stomach growl traitorously. I hadn't eaten since the plane. Mr. Ungaretti thought you might be hungry, Marco said, setting the tray on a small table by the window. He also wanted me to tell you that dinner with the family is at 7 tomorrow night. Attendance is not optional. Is anything optional in this prison? I asked. Marco almost smiled. No. But the food is excellent, so there's that. After he left, I devoured the pasta, the bread, the salad, everything. It was the best meal I'd had in months, maybe years, and I resented every delicious bite. This was how they bought you, how they made you complicit in your own captivity. They gave you comfort and called it care, gave you luxury and called it protection. I spent the rest of the evening exploring my gilded cage. The estate was massive, filled with security I could feel even when I couldn't see it. Cameras in corners, men in suits stationed at strategic points, the sense of being constantly observed. I walked the gardens as the sun set, breathing in air that smelled cleaner than São Paulo's pollution, and plotted. I could run, steal money somehow, get to the airport, fly back to Brazil. But then what? My mother would lose her treatment. The loan sharks might not have gotten Dominic's memo about leaving me alone. And if what Sophia said was true, he'd find me anyway. I could refuse to marry him. But that seemed like a death sentence for my mother, and possibly for me. Or I could marry him and make his life absolute hell until he begged me to leave. That option held a certain appeal. I was considering the specifics of how to be the worst wife possible when I heard voices from an open window. Men, speaking Italian, something about shipments and territories and other things I didn't fully understand. But I understood enough to know they were discussing something illegal. The wedding needs to happen quickly, one voice said. The Castellanos are already asking questions. If we don't show strength now, the wedding will happen. That was Dominic's voice, cold and certain. Diana will marry me in 3 days, smile for the photos, and play her part. And if she doesn't, if she refuses at the altar, she won't. There was such absolute confidence in his voice that I wanted to prove him wrong just on principle. I have her mother. I have her debts. I have every single pressure point that matters to her. She'll marry me because she has no choice. She's not Isabella, another voice said. From what I hear, she's wild, undisciplined. Are you sure you can control her? A pause. Then Dominic laughed, a dark sound that made my skin prickle. Control her? Who said anything about control? I just need her to marry me. What happens after that, we'll see. But one way or another, Diana Pretorati will learn her place. Fury burned through me, hot and clean. Learn my place? We'd see about that. I was still seething when I returned to my room to find Sophia waiting with more bags. "Wedding dress fitting tomorrow morning," she said. "Also, you have appointments with the hairdresser, makeup artist, and someone to teach you basic etiquette for the wedding." Etiquette? I couldn't help the incredulous laugh. He's kidnapping me and forcing me into marriage, but I need etiquette lessons? You need to know how to act at a mob wedding, Sophia corrected. There are rules, expectations. People will be watching you, judging. Any mistake could be seen as weakness, and weakness in this world is death. I get it. I collapsed onto the bed. This is insane. All of it. Yes, Sophia agreed. But it's your life now. Might as well learn to survive it. She left, and I lay there staring at the ceiling, trying to figure out how I'd gone from struggling to pay rent in Sao Paulo to preparing for a mob wedding in New York in less than 48 hours. The next morning started with the dress fitting. I was led to a private room where 3 seamstresses waited with a wedding gown that probably cost more than my mother's annual medical bills. It was beautiful, I had to admit. Ivory silk with delicate lace, fitted bodice, flowing skirt. Traditional, but with modern touches that somehow felt like me despite being chosen by someone else. "Mr. Ungaretti selected it himself," one of the seamstresses said as they pinned and tucked. "He has excellent taste." "Mr. Ungaretti can go to hell," I muttered in Portuguese. The seamstress who'd spoken revealed herself to be Brazilian with a knowing smile. I said the same thing about my husband when I met him. 20 years later, still married. "Was your husband a mob boss who forced you into marriage?" "No, but he was an asshole who thought he knew what was best for me." She winked. "They're all the same, these controlling men. The trick is making them think they're in charge while you do exactly what you want." I filed that advice away for later. The etiquette lesson was worse than I'd imagined. A severe woman named Elena spent 3 hours drilling me on how to sit, how to stand, how to smile, how to greet people, which families were allies, which were enemies, who I could talk to and who I should avoid. My head spun with information I'd never wanted to know. "The Castellanos will be there," Elena said. "They're rivals. Be polite but distant. Never smile too warmly at Luca Castellano. He's handsome and charming and absolutely lethal, so he and Dominic should get along great," I said. Elena's lips pressed into a thin line. "This isn't a joke, Miss Prederotti. One wrong move at this wedding could start a war." "Then maybe don't force someone who knows nothing about this world to star in your mob production." She had no answer for that. Lunch was brought to my room. More incredible food that I ate while mentally composing nasty things to say to Dominic when I saw him next. But I didn't see him. All day, he remained absent. A controlling presence who'd set my prison in motion and then disappeared. It wasn't until evening, when I was exhausted from fittings and lessons and being poked and prodded by strangers, that I finally encountered him again. I'd gone to the library, a beautiful room lined with books in Italian and English and, surprisingly, Portuguese. I was browsing the shelves, looking for anything to distract myself, when his voice came from behind me. "Find anything interesting?" I didn't turn around. "Are you spying on me? Or do you just have such little to do that you track my movements around your house?" "Both." I could hear the amusement in his voice. "How was your day?" "Oh, wonderful. I spent hours learning how to be the perfect mob wife. Apparently there's a right way to smile at your enemies and a wrong way to hold a wine glass. Who knew?" "It's important." He moved closer. I could feel his presence behind me, warm and imposing. "This wedding isn't just about us. It's about showing strength, unity, stability. It's about control." I finally turned to face him. "About you controlling me, controlling the narrative, controlling everything." He changed from his suit to more casual clothes, dark jeans and a black shirt that made him look younger, less like a mob boss and more like a dangerously attractive man, which was worse somehow. Yes, he agreed simply. Control is what keeps us alive in this world. Chaos is death. Maybe I prefer chaos. Then you'll learn to prefer control. He reached past me, pulling a book from the shelf. Portuguese poetry. Did you know I spent 2 years in São Paulo? When I was younger, learning the family business. That caught me off guard. You lived in Brazil? I speak 5 languages fluently. Portuguese, Italian, English, Spanish, and enough Russian to negotiate with the bratva. He handed me the book. I understand your world better than you think, Deanna. If you understand it, then you know how cruel this is, ripping me away from everything I know, forcing me into a life I never wanted. Your life in São Paulo was killing you slowly. His voice was matter of fact. 3 jobs, crushing debt, watching your mother suffer. Is that really better than this? At least it was my choice. Was it? He tilted his head. Or were you trapped by circumstances just as surely as you're trapped now? The only difference is the quality of the cage. I wanted to argue, but he had a point. My life in Brazil had been a different kind of prison, one made of poverty and desperation instead of luxury and force. I'm going to make you miserable, I said instead. I'm going to be the worst wife you've ever imagined. I'll embarrass you, defy you, make you regret every moment you forced me into this. He smiled, and it transformed his face from coldly handsome to devastatingly attractive. Good. Good? Isabella was perfect, obedient, trained from birth to be the ideal mob wife. She was also boring as hell. He stepped closer, invading my space deliberately. You, Piccola, are many things, but boring isn't one of them. Don't call me that. My heart was racing, though whether from anger or something else I wasn't sure. Why not? It suits you. Small and fierce, like a little wildcat. His hand came up, brushing a strand of hair from my face. I'm looking forward to our marriage, Deanna. It's going to be very entertaining. Then he left, leaving me standing there with my pulse pounding and my mind racing. I'd expected threats or coldness or brutality. What I hadn't expected was this: his amusement at my defiance, his interest in my resistance. Dominic Ungaretti wasn't trying to break me. He was enjoying the fight. And that, I realized as I clutched the poetry book to my chest, was so much more dangerous than anything I'd imagined. The morning of my wedding, I woke up at dawn from a nightmare where I was drowning in white silk. My mother's face kept appearing and disappearing in the waves, calling for me while I sank deeper and deeper. I sat up, sweating and disoriented, in this room that still didn't feel real. In 36 hours, I'd been measured, lectured, dressed up like a doll, and prepared for a wedding I didn't want to a man I barely knew. And through it all, Dominic had remained a distant, controlling presence, orchestrating my life from behind the scenes. Today, that would change. Today, I would become his wife. The thought made my stomach churn. Sophia arrived at 6 with breakfast I couldn't eat, and a schedule that made my head spin. Hair at 7, makeup at 9, dress at 11, photos at noon, ceremony at 2. Every minute accounted for, every moment controlled. Even my rebellion was on a timeline. You look terrified, Sophia observed, as a team of stylists descended on me, turning my simple Brazilian waves into an elaborate updo that probably required engineering skills to maintain. I am terrified, I admitted in Portuguese, then switched to English. I'm marrying a stranger who thinks he owns me. He does own you, one of the makeup artists said, matter-of-factly. Might as well get used to it. Helpful. Thanks. By 11, I was transformed. The girl from São Paulo who'd worn second-hand clothes and worked 3 jobs had disappeared, replaced by someone who looked like she belonged in this world of wealth and violence. The dress fit perfectly. The veil was held in place by a diamond tiara that probably cost more than my mother's apartment, and my face had been painted into a mask of serene beauty that hid the screaming inside. "You're stunning," Sophia whispered, her eyes bright. "Mr. Ungaretti is going to lose his mind." "Good. Maybe he'll have a heart attack and I can be a widow instead of a wife." She laughed, but there was worry in her expression. "Be careful what you wish for. Some of the other families would love to see Dominic weakened. If something happened to him, you'd be vulnerable." "I'm already vulnerable," I pointed out. He made sure of that. There was a knock and my father entered, looking uncomfortable in his expensive suit. We'd barely spoken since I'd arrived, communicating only through others. But apparently, tradition demanded he walk me down the aisle. "You look beautiful," he said stiffly. "Your mother would be proud." "My mother is dying in Brazil because you abandoned us," I replied in Portuguese, my voice sharp. "Don't pretend you care about her opinion now." His jaw tightened. "I did what I had to do for the family. You did what was easiest for you." I stood, the dress rustling around me. "You chose your Mafia familia over your actual family, and now you're selling me off to fix your problems. Again. Deanna, save it." I brushed past him toward the door. "Let's get this farce over with." The chapel was on the estate, a small stone building that somehow managed to be both beautiful and menacing. As I approached, I could hear music, see the gathered guests through the open doors. The entire New York underworld had turned out to witness the Predarotti-Ungaretti alliance, or to see if I'd actually go through with it. My father offered his arm. I ignored it, walking ahead of him, my head high despite the trembling in my legs. If I was going to be forced into this marriage, I'd do it on my terms, walking into my own prison with my eyes open. The chapel was packed. Hundreds of faces turned to watch me, assessing, judging. I recognized some from Elena's lessons. The Castellanos in the 3rd row, their expressions unreadable. The Benedettis near the front, looking satisfied. Various other families whose names I'd already forgotten. And at the altar, waiting with a priest who looked distinctly uncomfortable, was Dominic. He wore a black tuxedo that fit him like sin, his dark hair styled back, his expression unreadable as he watched me approach. For a moment, our eyes met, and I saw something flicker in his gaze. Not quite satisfaction, not quite triumph. Something more complicated. Then his expression smoothed into that controlled mask he wore so well. I reached the altar without my father, making it clear to everyone watching that this wasn't a transaction with his blessing. This was a hostage exchange, and I was the hostage. "Deanna," Dominic said quietly, his voice pitched only for me. "You look..." "Save it," I interrupted. "Let's just get this over with." The priest launched into the ceremony in Italian, words I only half understood about duty and honor and loyalty, traditional Catholic vows that felt like a joke given the circumstances. When it came time for the vows themselves, Dominic spoke his in that deep voice, his eyes never leaving mine. "I, Dominic Ungaretti, take you, Deanna Predarotti, to be my wife. I promise to protect you, provide for you, and honor the commitment we make here today." Notice what he didn't promise: to love, to cherish, to be faithful. This was a business contract, and he wasn't pretending otherwise. When it was my turn, I spoke in Portuguese, my accent thick with rebellion. "I, Deanna Predarotti, accept this marriage under duress. I promise nothing except to survive whatever comes next." Gasps rippled through the chapel. The priest looked horrified. My father turned red. "And Dominic?" He smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "Close enough," he murmured. Then to the priest, "Continue." "I'm not sure if..." the priest started. Continue, Dominic repeated, his voice dropping to something dangerous. The priest swallowed hard and rushed through the rest, pronouncing us husband and wife with obvious relief. When Dominic was instructed to kiss the bride, he stepped closer, his hands framing my face with surprising gentleness. That was quite the performance, he whispered against my lips. But now you're mine, Piccola. Legally, publicly, completely. Then he kissed me. I expected it to be rough, possessive, a show of dominance for the watching crowd. Instead, it was slow and thorough, his lips moving against mine with a skill that made my traitorous body respond despite my fury. When he pulled back, my breath was coming faster, and his eyes had darkened with something that looked like hunger. Perfect, he murmured. Now smile for our guests. The reception was held in the estate's ballroom, transformed into something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers, thousands of white roses, tables laden with food and wine. A string quartet played while the cream of New York's criminal underworld mingled and made deals. I was paraded around like a prize, introduced to people whose names ran together, whose hands I shook while wanting to scream. Dominic kept me close, his hand never leaving my waist, a constant reminder of ownership. You're doing well, he said during a rare moment alone. Better than I expected. You expected me to cause a scene? I expected you to try to stab me with a cake knife by now. Despite myself, I almost laughed. The night is young. His lips twitched. I like you, Deanna. You're unpredictable, dangerous. It's refreshing. I'm not trying to be refreshing. I'm trying to survive. Same thing, in this world. He pulled me closer as the music changed, leading me onto the dance floor for our first dance as husband and wife. But you should know something. Isabella's death wasn't an accident. I stumbled, and his arm tightened around me, keeping me upright. What? She was murdered. His voice was low, meant only for me as we swayed to the music. Made to look like a car accident, but it was too clean, too convenient. Someone wanted her dead. Why are you telling me this? Because whoever killed her might come after you next. His dark eyes held mine. You're not just my wife now, Deanna. You're a target. The only thing keeping you alive is me. Fear slithered down my spine. Is this another manipulation? Another way to control me? It's the truth. His hand splayed across my lower back, pulling me flush against him. I have enemies, lots of them. Some of them will see you as my weakness. They'll try to use you against me. Then let me go. Send me back to Brazil. I'll disappear, and your enemies will have nothing to use. No. The word was absolute. You're mine now. I don't give up what's mine. Even if it puts me in danger? Especially then. Something fierce entered his expression. I protect what's mine, Deanna. With everything I have. You're safer with me than you'd ever be alone. That's not reassuring. It's the truth. He spun me, and when I came back to him, his lips were close to my ear. Your sister tried to run. 3 days before our wedding, she packed a bag and tried to disappear. That's when they killed her. My blood ran cold. She was running from you? From this life. From what being my wife would mean. His voice was carefully neutral. I don't know if she was working with someone, or if she just got desperate. But her attempt to escape signed her death warrant. And you're telling me this why? To warn me not to try the same thing? And to warn you that running makes you vulnerable. He pulled back to look at me, his expression serious. Stay close to me, Deanna. Accept my protection. Let me keep you safe. It's the only way you survive. And my mother? Is she safe? She's in a private hospital in São Paulo, receiving the best care money can buy. I have men watching her around the clock. His thumb traced my spine, the gesture almost tender. She's my leverage, yes. But she's also under my protection now. No one touches her without going through me. I wanted to hate him for using my mother against me. But I also felt a reluctant relief knowing she was being cared for, protected. The contradiction made my head spin. I don't understand you, I admitted. 1 minute you're threatening me. The next you're protecting me. Which is it? Both. His smile was dark. I'm a complicated man, Piccola. You'll figure that out soon enough. The rest of the reception passed in a blur. I smiled, danced, played the role of happy bride while my mind raced with everything Dominic had told me. Isabella, murdered for trying to escape. Enemies watching, waiting for weakness. My mother safe, but still a hostage. I was trapped in a web I didn't understand, married to a man who terrified and intrigued me in equal measure. As the night wore on and guests finally began to leave, Dominic appeared at my side. Time to go. Go where? Our honeymoon. He said it casually, like it was the most normal thing in the world. We're expected to disappear for a week. Tradition. I don't want a honeymoon with you. I don't particularly care what you want. But there was no heat in the words. Besides, you'll like where we're going. Sicily. Beautiful this time of year. Sicily? I stared at him. You're taking me to Italy? I'm taking you somewhere safe, away from New York and anyone who might try to use you against me. His hand found the small of my back again. Come, wife. Our plane is waiting. And because I had no choice, because my mother's life hung in the balance, because I was trapped in this marriage whether I wanted it or not, I followed my husband into the night. Into whatever came next. The private jet was obscene. Leather seats that reclined into beds, a full bar, a bedroom in the back with an actual king-sized bed. I stood in the doorway, taking it all in while Dominic moved past me with casual familiarity, loosening his tie and pouring himself a drink. Sit, he said, gesturing to one of the plush seats. We have an 8-hour flight. Might as well get comfortable. Comfortable. I remained standing, my wedding dress suddenly feeling like a costume I was desperate to remove. You kidnapped me, forced me into marriage, and now you're taking me to another country. Forgive me if I'm not feeling particularly comfortable. He turned to face me, drink in hand, his expression unreadable. You're right. Let me rephrase. Sit down, Deanna, or I'll put you in that seat myself. The threat was delivered calmly, almost pleasantly, which somehow made it worse. I sat, more from exhaustion than obedience. The day had been endless, and the emotional toll was catching up with me now that the performance was over. Dominic settled into the seat across from me, studying me over the rim of his glass. You held up well today, better than expected. What did you expect? That I'd collapse into hysterics? Some women would have. He took a sip of what looked like scotch. But you're not most women, are you, Deanna? Stop trying to compliment me. It won't work. Who said it was a compliment? But there was amusement in his voice. Want a drink? You look like you could use one. I wanted to refuse on principle, but Christo, I needed something to take the edge off. Wine. Red, if you have it. He stood and poured from a bottle that probably cost more than my monthly rent in São Paulo, handing it to me before retaking his seat. The wine was excellent, smooth and rich, and I hated that I noticed. So, I said, after a long sip. Sicily. Are we visiting your family's ancestral murder grounds, or is this purely a romantic getaway? His lips twitched. A villa on the coast. Private, secure, far from anyone who might want to cause problems. We'll have a week alone. Alone. The word made my stomach flip. Just you and me. Disappointed? Were you hoping for chaperones? I was hoping to wake up and discover this was all a nightmare. Sorry to disappoint. He leaned back, looking completely at ease. But this is very real, Piccola. You're my wife now, legally bound to me. The sooner you accept that, the easier things will be. Easier for who? For both of us. His dark eyes held mine. I'm not the monster you think I am, Deanna. I have rules, expectations, but I'm not unreasonable. You threatened my mother to force me into marriage. That seems pretty unreasonable. I gave your mother the medical care she desperately needed. I paid off your debts. I removed every obstacle standing between you and a comfortable life. He set down his glass. Was I supposed to ask politely and hope you'd agree out of the goodness of your heart? You could have given me a choice. You had a choice. Marry me or watch your mother die. You chose your mother, which tells me everything I need to know about your priorities. He paused. I respect that, actually. Loyalty is rare in this world. Don't pretend you respect me when you own me. I can do both. He stood, moving toward the bedroom in the back. There are clothes for you in the closet. Change out of that dress. We'll talk more when you're comfortable. Stop telling me to be comfortable. He paused at the doorway, glancing back with that infuriating half-smile. Stop being so uncomfortable. Then he disappeared into the bedroom, leaving me alone with my wine and my fury. I waited until the door closed before standing and exploring the plane's closet. Sure enough, it was stocked with clothes in my size. Casual wear, designer labels, nothing too revealing or provocative. He'd thought of everything, planned for every contingency. I changed into jeans and a soft sweater, leaving the wedding dress in a heap on the floor. A petty rebellion, but it made me feel slightly better. When I emerged, Dominic had changed too, now in dark pants and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked younger like this, less like a mob boss and more like a dangerously attractive man, which was a problem I didn't want to think about. Better? He asked from where he sat working on a laptop. Marginally. I settled back into my seat, trying not to stare at his forearms. Since when did forearms become attractive? What are you working on? Business. He didn't look up. The world doesn't stop just because I got married. What kind of business? The kind you're better off not knowing about. I'm your wife now. Shouldn't I know what you do? That made him look up, his expression sharp. My wife, yes. My partner, no. There are parts of my life you don't want to be involved in. Deanna, trust me on this. Hard to trust someone who forced me into marriage, and yet, here we are. He closed the laptop. Let me be clear about something. I have enemies, people who would love to see me weakened, destroyed. If they knew details about my operations, they could use that information against me. And if you knew those details, they could use you to get to them. So you're protecting me by keeping me ignorant? I'm protecting you by keeping you separate from the worst parts of my world. His voice was firm. You want to hate me? Fine. You want to make my life difficult? Go ahead. But you will not involve yourself in my business. That's not negotiable. Everything with you is not negotiable. Welcome to being married to me. He stood, moving to sit in the seat beside mine instead of across from me. But it's not all bad. You'll have freedom within limits. Money to spend however you want. Access to anything you need. Except my actual freedom. Except that. He reached out, catching a strand of my hair and tucking it behind my ear. The gesture was surprisingly gentle, and I hated how it made my skin tingle. But freedom is overrated, Piccola. Safety, security, protection, those things matter more. Not to me. Then you'll learn. His hand lingered, his thumb tracing my jawline. I'm a patient teacher. I pulled away from his touch, my heart racing. Don't. Don't what? Touch you. His voice dropped lower. You're my wife, Deanna. I have every right to touch you. Rights on paper don't mean anything if I'm not willing. Something flickered in his eyes. Respect, maybe, or surprise. You're right. They don't. He leaned back, giving me space. I won't force myself on you. That's one line I don't cross. How noble, I said sarcastically, but relief flooded through me. I'm many things, but a rapist isn't one of them. His voice was cold now. When you come to my bed, it'll be because you want to, and you will eventually. Confident. Certain. He smiled, and it was predatory. I've seen the way you look at me, Deanna. You're attracted to me, even though you don't want to be. It infuriates you, doesn't it? You're delusional. Am I? He leaned closer, not touching, but close enough that I could feel the heat of his body. Your pupils dilate when I'm near. Your breath quickens. You blush when I touch you, even when you're angry. That's not attraction. That's fear. Is it? His lips were close to my ear now. Then why is your pulse racing right now? Why are you leaning toward me instead of away? I jerked back, realizing he was right. Christo, when had I started leaning in? Stay away from me. Can't do that, Piccola. You're my wife. We're going to be sharing very close quarters for the next week. He settled back into his seat, looking satisfied. But I'll make you a deal. I won't push for more than you're willing to give. In return, you stop pretending you're completely unaffected by me. That's not a deal. That's you being delusional about my feelings. We'll see. He pulled out his phone, effectively dismissing me. Get some sleep. We land in a few hours and you look exhausted. I wanted to argue, but he was right. I was exhausted, wrung out from the emotional roller coaster of the day. And despite everything, despite my anger and fear and confusion, I felt my eyes growing heavy. The last thing I remembered before drifting off was Dominic draping a blanket over me, his touch gentle, his voice a low murmur in Italian that I didn't understand, but somehow found comforting. When I woke, we were landing. The sun was rising over Sicily, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Dominic was watching me, his expression unreadable. Welcome to Italy, Mrs. Ungaretti, he said softly. Your new life starts now. And despite every instinct screaming at me to run, to fight, to refuse this new reality, I followed him off the plane and into whatever came next. Because what choice did I have? The villa was perched on a cliff overlooking the Mediterranean, all white stone and terracotta tiles, surrounded by olive groves and wild gardens that smelled of lavender and rosemary. It was breathtaking, the kind of place people saved their entire lives to visit for a week, and I hated it on principle. Home sweet home, Dominic said, as we pulled up in a sleek black car that had been waiting at the private airstrip. For the next week, anyway. It's lovely, I admitted grudgingly, then immediately regretted giving him even that small concession. Wait until you see the inside. He came around to open my door, offering his hand. I ignored it, climbing out on my own and immediately stumbling in my heels on the gravel. His arm caught me, steadying me against his chest. Stubborn, he murmured against my hair, even when it would be easier to accept help. I don't need your help. No, you just need to fall on your face to prove a point. But there was amusement in his voice as he released me. Come, I'll show you around. The interior was even more stunning than the exterior. High ceilings with exposed beams, whitewashed walls covered in local art, furniture that managed to be both rustic and expensive. Floor-to-ceiling windows opened onto a terrace with a view of the sea that made my breath catch. There are 3 bedrooms, Dominic said, watching my reaction. You can have your own if you want. I won't force us to share. I turned to stare at him, surprised. Really? Really? He moved past me toward the kitchen, which was stocked with fresh food, wine, everything we could need. I told you, Deanna. I don't force myself on women. When you come to me, it'll be your choice. I won't. We'll see. He pulled out a bottle of Prosecco, expertly opening it. For now, why don't you explore? Pick whatever room you want. Unpack. The view from the master bedroom is best, but I'll take one of the others if you prefer. Why are you being nice? I couldn't help asking. What's the angle? No angle. He poured 2 glasses, offering me one. We're married, Deanna. We're going to be living together for the rest of our lives. I'd prefer if that life wasn't constant warfare. You forced me into this marriage. Yes. He didn't deny it. And I'd do it again, because I needed a wife and you needed your mother to live. But now that the wedding is done, the papers are signed, we can figure out how to actually exist together. Maybe even find some middle ground. There is no middle ground between captor and prisoner. Then we'll create one. He raised his glass. To new beginnings, however unwanted. I stared at him for a long moment, trying to figure out his game. Because men like Dominic Ungaretti always had a game. But his expression was open, almost hopeful. And against my better judgment, I found myself raising my glass to meet his. To survival, I corrected. I'll take it. He drank, then set down his glass. I have some calls to make. Take your time settling in. We'll have dinner on the terrace at sunset. After he disappeared into what looked like a study, I explored the villa with my Prosecco in hand. The master bedroom was indeed stunning, with a king-sized bed draped in white linen, doors opening onto a private balcony, and a bathroom with a tub that overlooked the sea. I should have chosen one of the other rooms out of spite. But Cristo, the view was incredible, and I was tired of cutting off my nose to spite my face. I unpacked the luggage that had mysteriously appeared in the master bedroom, finding more clothes in my size, including swimsuits, beach cover-ups, and sundresses. Everything I'd need for a week by the sea. Everything chosen by someone who knew my sizes, my style, my preferences. It should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt oddly thoughtful. I was dangerous territory, starting to see Dominic as something other than my captor. But the Prosecco was good. The view was incredible. And for the first time in years, I wasn't worrying about money or my mother or anything except this strange, surreal situation I'd found myself in. I changed into a sundress and wandered out onto the terrace, letting the Mediterranean sun warm my skin. It was October, but here it felt like summer, the air carrying the scent of salt and citrus. Beautiful, isn't it? Dominic's voice came from behind me. I turned to find him changed too, now in linen pants and a white shirt that made his olive skin look even darker. He'd lost the tie, unbuttoned the shirt enough to show his throat, and he looked relaxed in a way I'd never seen before. It's perfect, I admitted. I've never seen anything like it. My grandmother was Sicilian. This was her family's villa. He came to stand beside me at the railing, looking out at the sea. She left it to me when she died. Said I'd need somewhere to escape to when the city got too loud. Was she part of the family business? She was the family business. He smiled at the memory. Don't let anyone tell you the Mafia is just men. The women run things from the shadows, make the real decisions, hold the power. My grandmother was fiercer than any man I've known. She sounds terrifying. She was. And she would have liked you. I looked at him skeptically. Why? Because I'm also terrifying? Because you don't back down. His dark eyes met mine. She always said the worst thing a woman could be was weak. Better to be difficult, rebellious, impossible, than to be broken. Is that your way of saying you approve of me making your life hell? It's my way of saying I respect you for fighting. He turned to face me fully. I don't want a doormat, Deanna. I don't want someone who says yes to everything I demand. Isabella was like that. Perfect and obedient and utterly lifeless. You? He reached out, catching a strand of my hair that the wind had blown across my face. You're alive in a way she never was. My breath caught at the touch, at the intensity in his gaze. Don't. Don't what? Tell you the truth? His thumb traced my cheekbone. You're beautiful when you're angry. Did you know that? Your eyes flash, your cheeks flush. You look like you want to murder me. It's incredibly attractive. You're insane, probably. But he didn't move away, didn't drop his hand. We're alone here, Piccola. No one watching, no one judging, no one expecting us to perform. Just you and me. Wouldn't it be easier to stop fighting and see what happens? What happens is you get what you want, and I lose what little agency I have left. Or what happens is we both get something we need. His voice dropped lower. I'm not just talking about sex, Deanna. I'm talking about companionship, partnership, someone to talk to who isn't afraid to challenge me. I'm not your companion. I'm your prisoner. Are you? He gestured to the villa, the view, the freedom stretching out around us. There are no guards here, no locks on the doors. You could walk down that path to the road, hitchhike to the nearest town, find a way back to Brazil. I wouldn't stop you. My heart raced. You're lying. I'm not. His expression was serious now. You want to leave? Go. I'll even give you money for the trip. But before you do, ask yourself something. What are you going back to? Your mother is being cared for better than she ever was before. Your debts are paid. You have no job, no apartment, no life waiting for you in São Paulo. All you'd be running back to is struggle and poverty and watching your mother die slowly. At least it would be my choice. Would it? He challenged. Or would you be choosing pride over practicality, rebellion over security? Sometimes, Deanna, the brave thing isn't to run. It's to stay and make the best of an impossible situation. I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, to storm off and prove I didn't need him or his protection or his twisted logic. But Cristo helped me. He had a point. What was I running back to? What life was waiting for me in Brazil? I hate you, I whispered. I know. He smiled, but it was softer than his usual predatory grins. But you don't have to. We could try something revolutionary, like actually getting to know each other. Why? We're already married. You have what you wanted. I have a legal contract. I don't have a wife, not really, and I'd like one. He stepped back, giving me space. Spend the week with me, Deanna. Not as my prisoner, but as my guest. Get to know me beyond the monster you've built in your head. Maybe you'll still hate me at the end. Or maybe you'll discover I'm not quite as bad as you think. You forced me into marriage. Yes, and I won't apologize for it because I'd do it again. His honesty was brutal. But that doesn't mean the marriage itself has to be a punishment. We can make this work if you're willing to try. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at it, his expression hardening. I need to take this. It's about your mother. Fear spiked through me. Is she okay? That's what I'm about to find out. He answered in Italian, his voice cold and commanding as he walked back inside. I stayed on the terrace, my mind spinning. Was he right? Was staying and trying to make this work braver than running? Or was I just rationalizing my own captivity? Dominic returned a few minutes later, his expression relieved. She's fine. Better than fine, actually. The new treatment is working. Her doctors are optimistic. The relief was so intense I felt my knees weaken. Really? Really. He came closer, his hands settling on my shoulders. I told you, Deanna. I take care of what's mine. That includes your mother. She's not yours. She's yours, which makes her mine by extension. His thumbs trace circles on my shoulders, the touch soothing despite my resistance. I keep my promises. Your mother will have the best care money can buy for as long as she needs it, no matter what happens between us. I looked up at him, searching his face for deception, for the angle, for the trap. But all I saw was sincerity, and that was almost worse than if he'd been lying. Why? I asked. Why go to all this trouble? You could have married anyone. Why force me into this? Because I needed a preterati, and you were the only one available. He paused. And because from the moment I saw your file, read about your life, your struggles, your loyalty to your mother despite everything, I knew you were different, strong, real. Everything Isabella wasn't. You didn't even know me. I knew enough. His hand slid up to cup my face. And every moment I spend with you confirms I was right. You're exactly what I need, Deanna, even if you don't realize it yet. And what I need doesn't matter. What you need is to be safe, cared for, protected from a world that would destroy you given half a chance. His voice was fierce. I can give you that. I can give you everything. All you have to do is stop fighting me long enough to let me. That's not how it works. Then show me how it works, he challenged. Teach me. Tell me what you need and I'll give it to you. Within reason, he added with a slight smile. I need you to let me go. Except that. His smile faded. Anything but that. We stood there, locked in our impossible standoff, the Mediterranean wind blowing around us, carrying the scent of salt and possibility. And despite everything, despite all the reasons I should push him away, I found myself leaning into his touch, into his warmth, into the promise of something I couldn't quite name. Maybe he was right. Maybe staying was the brave choice. Or maybe I was just tired of fighting a battle I couldn't win. The week in Sicily passed in a strange blur of sunlight and wine and conversations that shouldn't have been so easy. Dominic, away from New York and his empire, was different. Still dangerous, still commanding, but also surprisingly funny, with a dry wit that caught me off guard. He told me stories about his grandmother, about growing up in the Mafia, about the weight of legacy and expectation. And I, against every instinct, found myself talking too. About my mother, about Brazil, about the dreams I'd abandoned when reality became about survival instead of possibility. We fell into a rhythm. Mornings on the terrace with coffee and fresh pastries from the village. Afternoons exploring the coast, or reading in comfortable silence. Evenings cooking together, because Dominic apparently knew his way around a kitchen, his grandmother's recipes committed to memory. She said a man who couldn't cook was useless. He explained as he taught me to make pasta from scratch, his hands covering mine as he showed me how to fold the dough. That the kitchen was where real power lived, because everyone had to eat. Smart woman, I admitted, trying to ignore how warm his body felt pressed against my back, how his breath on my neck made me shiver. She'd like you, he murmured. Stubborn, fierce, refusing to be intimidated. You're exactly her type. I'm no one's type. You're mine. He turned me to face him, flour dusting both our hands, whether you believe it yet or not. I wanted to kiss him. Christo. I wanted it so badly it terrified me. This man who'd forced me into marriage, who controlled every aspect of my life, who represented everything I should hate. But his dark eyes were warm, his touch gentle, and the want in his expression matched my own. Dominic, I started. His phone rang, shattering the moment. He stepped back, his expression shuddering as he checked the screen. I need to take this. It's Marco. He walked away, speaking in rapid Italian, and I was left standing in the kitchen covered in flour, my heart racing, wondering what the hell was happening to me. When he returned 10 minutes later, his face was hard, all traces of the man I'd been getting to know replaced by the mob boss. "We need to leave, now." Fear shot through me. "What's wrong? Is it my mother?" "Your mother is fine, but there's been a development in New York. Someone made a move against one of my operations." He was already moving, pulling out his phone to make calls. "Pack your essentials. We leave in an hour." "Dominic, what's happening?" He paused, his jaw tight. "The Castellanos. They've been behind everything. Isabella's death, the pressure on our families, all of it. They're trying to start a war, and they've decided you're their next target." My blood ran cold. "Me? Why?" "Because you're my weakness." His voice was harsh. "Or they think you are. Marco intercepted communications. They're planning to grab you when we return, use you as leverage to force me out." "Then don't go back. Stay here, where it's safe. I can't hide in Sicily while my empire burns." He gripped my shoulders. "But I can protect you. Will protect you. No one touches what's mine, Deanna. No one." The flight back was tense. Dominic spent most of it on the phone, speaking in Italian too rapid for me to follow, his expression growing darker with each call. When we landed in New York, there were twice as many guards as before, and the drive to the estate felt like a military convoy. "You're staying at the house?" Dominic said as we pulled up. "Marco and 6 men will be with you at all times. You don't leave the grounds without me. Understand? I'm not a child. No, you're my wife, which makes you a target." He cupped my face, his touch urgent. "Promise me, Deanna. Promise you'll stay where I can keep you safe." The fear in his eyes, barely concealed, made my chest tight. "I promise." He kissed me then, hard and desperate, like he was afraid it might be the last time. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against mine. "I'll come back to you. And when I do, this will all be over." Then he was gone, leaving me in that beautiful prison with guards at every door. 2 days passed like torture. I paced, I read, I tried to distract myself, but all I could think about was Dominic out there, facing enemies who wanted him dead. Who wanted me dead. On the 3rd day, Marco came to find me in the library. "Mrs. Ungaretti, we have a situation." My heart stopped. "Is he okay? Is Dominic?" "He's fine. But there's been an incident. The Castellanos made their move. 3 of our warehouses hit simultaneously, 2 men dead." Marco's expression was grim. "Mr. Ungaretti is handling it, but he wanted me to move you to a safe house, just as a precaution." "When?" "Now." Something felt wrong. Marco's eyes wouldn't quite meet mine. The other guards were positioned strangely, and Dominic had promised to call me every day, but my phone had been silent since this morning. "I need to talk to Dominic first," I said carefully, "before I go anywhere. No time. He insisted. Then he can insist to my face." I backed toward the door. "Call him. Let me hear his voice telling me to leave." Marco's expression hardened. "I'm afraid I can't do that, Mrs. Ungaretti. You're coming with us one way or another." The other guards moved in, and I realized with sick certainty that these weren't Dominic's men, or they had been, until someone offered them a better deal. I ran. Through the house, out onto the terrace, heading for the gardens where I knew there were actual security patrols. But they caught me before I made it, strong hands grabbing me, a cloth pressed over my mouth that smelled sweet and chemical. The world went fuzzy, then dark. I woke in a warehouse, tied to a chair, my head pounding. Luca Castellano stood in front of me, handsome and smiling and absolutely terrifying. "Mrs. Ungaretti," he said pleasantly. "Welcome. I apologize for the rough treatment, but you understand, we needed to get you away from your husband's protection." "He'll kill you," I said, my voice hoarse. "All of you." "Probably." Luca didn't seem concerned. "But first he'll have to choose, his wife or his empire. Interesting dilemma, don't you think?" "You don't know Dominic. I know men like him. Power is everything. And when forced to choose between power and a wife he was forced to marry, well," he shrugged, "I think we know which he'll pick." He was wrong. I knew it with bone-deep certainty. Dominic would come for me, would burn the city down to get me back. I just had to survive long enough for him to find me. The door exploded inward 2 hours later. Dominic came through like an avenging angel, gun in hand, his men flooding in behind him. The firefight was brief and brutal, and when the smoke cleared, Luca Castellano was dead and I was free. Dominic cut my ropes with shaking hands, pulling me against him so hard it hurt. "Cristo Diana. Cristo." "I'm okay," I whispered. "I'm okay. Marco betrayed us. He's dead now, along with everyone else who thought they could use you against me." His voice was savage. "I burned their operations to the ground. Every Castellano property, every asset, everything. They're finished. Dominic, I chose you." He pulled back to look at me, his eyes fierce. "Power, empire, all of it means nothing if you're gone. Do you understand? You're not my weakness. You're my strength. You're everything." And there, in that warehouse with bodies cooling around us, I finally understood. This wasn't about control or possession. This was about a man who'd found something worth fighting for, worth burning the world down to protect. "Take me home," I said softly. 3 months later, I stood in our New York apartment, looking out at the city that had become mine. My mother was in a facility upstate, thriving on her treatment, visiting every weekend. I'd enrolled in online classes, was working on my writing again, had found, against all odds, a kind of freedom within the constraints of my new life. Dominic came up behind me, his arms wrapping around my waist, his chin resting on my shoulder. "What are you thinking about? How strange life is. How I came here hating you and now—" I paused. "And now?" he prompted. "And now I can't imagine being anywhere else." I turned in his arms. "I choose this, Dominic. Not because I'm forced, but because I want to. Because somewhere along the way, my prison became my home." His smile was soft, real, nothing like the predatory grins I'd first known. "I love you, Diana Ungaretti." "I know." I rose on my toes to kiss him. "I love you too. Even though you're impossible and controlling and absolutely infuriating. But you're mine. And I'm yours. And maybe that's enough. More than enough," he murmured against my lips. "Everything." And as he carried me to our bedroom, I realized the truth. I'd come to New York as the forgotten sister, forced into an impossible marriage. But I'd become something else entirely. I'd become his equal, his partner, his wife. Not because I had to be, but because I chose it, and that choice made all the difference.